Undercover boss revealed spoiled food scandal, 10 employees fired in an instant, amazing transformation in small-town diner. The diner hummed with the sound of sizzling bacon and laughter, a precious heart that pulsed in the small town of Maplewood. Sarah, a single mother in her early 30s, had turned her back on her dreams to keep this place alive. As the morning sun streamed through the window, she juggled coffee pots and children's backpacks, her 8-year-old son, Max, and 6-year-old Lily at her heels, filling the space with noise and wonder. Abandoned by their father, the raindrops of daily struggles fell heavy on her shoulders. Yet, it felt like family when she served the locals their breakfast. Each familiar face warmed her heart, but the pressure was mounting. Just as she began to settle into a rhythm, news broke that could shatter everything. Her estranged father, a decorated war veteran, had returned home, haunted by battles unseen. The conflicting emotions brewed within her. Sarah wanted to reach out, but the scars of their past loomed large. Little did she know, her father might just need her as much as she needed him. One fateful afternoon, chaos erupted. Undercover Boss was filmed at the diner without any warning. People came from all over to catch a glimpse, buzzing with anticipation. And then, like a storm, the investigation revealed spoiled food being served to unsuspecting customers. It was a scandal that felt like a gut punch. 10 employees were fired without warning, including Sarah's best friend, Lisa. The community erupted in anger. How could they betray their own when all they wanted was to put food on the table? The chants began, ringing through Maplewood. Justice for Lisa. Signs waved fiercely outside the diner as faces filled with outrage and disbelief stared in at Sarah. She felt pinned between her friends and her job, the walls closing in. Her heart raced each time she glanced at Max and Lily, their innocent eyes searching for reassurance. Should she stand up for Simone, for Lisa, and risk the little security she had? Or should she bow to the economic reality that threatened to wipe them all out? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The protests only grew louder, a chorus of desperation and hope. Each day, Sarah felt more alive, emotions pulling at her heart like a tune that wouldn't go away, seeking justice for her family, her friends, and for the community that had nurtured her. Then, hidden truths about the diner's ownership bubbled up, exposing deceit woven tightly in the fabric of their beloved establishment. As Sarah stood outside alongside her neighbors, something deep within her shifted. She had a choice: to help her community heal or to prioritize her own family's survival. Her father's return echoed in her mind, a chance for connection, for understanding, now contrasted sharply with her loyalty to those she loved. With the stakes mounting, anxiety clawed at Sarah's spirit. As she prepared herself for the ultimate confrontation, she heard a familiar voice calling through the rallying cries. With her world hanging in the balance and the community's heart at her back, an unexpected visit could either seal their fate or light the way to redemption. The tension crackled in the air, leaving Sarah uncertain about the choice that loomed before her, wondering could she dare to hope for a breakthrough? Or would she slip deeper into despair? The voices swirled around Sarah like a rising tide, each chant resonating deep within her. Justice for Lisa. It wasn't just a slogan, it felt personal. Every call echoed the betrayal she felt as she stood there, her heart gnawing at her with doubt. She looked to Max and Lily, their faces lit with confusion, searching for the familiar comfort of their mother. She forced a smile that always made the kids feel safe. But inside, her heart was weighing heavy. As the hours passed, the protests showed no signs of quieting down. Customers filled the diner, but the usual buzzing warmth felt like ice. The faces of her patrons had shifted from friendly to wary, the air thick with uncertainty. Sarah did her best to put on a brave face. She poured coffee, served scrambled eggs, but every clatter of a plate reverberated with a question she feared to answer. What if her decision to speak up would cost them everything? "Mommy, can we go home now?" Lily tugged at her apron, the innocence in her voice causing a crack in Sarah's tough exterior. "Just a little while longer, sweetheart," she assured, though uncertainty gnawed at her. Then she caught sight of her father. A shadowy figure hanging back, watching from a distance, the lines of care etched deep into his weathered face. His presence was both comforting and daunting. The shift she had felt growing inside her became a tidal wave, and she suddenly needed to speak to him. How could they mend what was broken if they never faced the ghosts of their past? Taking a deep breath, she stepped away from the chaos. The protests were inside the diner now, shouting for justice, but it felt more urgent to seek her father out. Striding through the crowd, Sarah's heart raced, not just from her frantic thoughts but the weight of unresolved feelings that had lingered far too long. "Dad!" She finally called out, the word unfamiliar and strange on her tongue. The older man looked up, surprise flickering in his eyes. He stepped forward, hesitant yet hopeful. "Sarah," his voice was thick, filled with emotion. They stood there, locked in each other's gaze, the world around them fading into a soft blur. "You came back," she said, trembling. It had been years since they'd seen each other. As anger from the past threatened to surface, she wanted to know, could he be the ally she needed right now, or was this another dead end? "I've been trying to find my way back to you," he admitted, sadness hanging between them as palpable as the protests behind. Before she could respond, a wave of shouts surged louder, breaking the moment. "Justice for Lisa!" rang like a bell tolling through the air, cutting deeper than any knife. Sarah's chest tightened. She had to make a choice that would impact not only their family but the entire community. Would she risk everything for justice? Stepping even closer to her father, she whispered urgently, "I need your help. We need to fix this." He had served his country, faced battles she couldn't fathom. Could he help her fight this one? As her father's brow furrowed, she sensed something shift between them, an understanding, a spark of hope. But would he rise to the occasion or retreat into his own shrouded past? In that charged moment, with the world pressing in, Sarah felt the heavy weight of decisions that loomed ahead. Could she forge a connection where none existed, or was she destined to let history repeat itself? The crowd surged and her resolve solidified, but deep inside, she could only wonder, was this the moment they defaced their ghosts, or were they too far gone? Sarah's heart raced as her father took a step back, the shadow of hesitation creeping across his face. The chants of the protesters faded into a distant hum, replaced by the rapid drumming of her pulse. She needed him now. "Dad, please, this isn't just about me. It's about Lisa, about justice," she urged, her voice barely above a whisper, yet steeped in urgency. The moment hung between them like a fragile thread, ready to snap at any moment. His gaze dropped to the floor, as if searching for answers buried in the worn tiles. "You don't understand, Sarah. I've made mistakes. You don't know what I've been through. It's complicated." The pain in his eyes mirrored her own struggle. They were both prisoners of their pasts, bound by the same shadows. Just then, the mingling scents of coffee and grease filled the air, reminding Sarah of the diner that had once felt like home. Her heart ached as she recalled the warmth of family gathered around the table during happy moments, now overshadowed by sadness. "I need you to choose a side," she insisted, fierce determination rising within her. "Lisa didn't have a choice. She was taken from us, and I refuse to let that happen without a fight." The passion in her words bore the weight of all their shared grief. She could see a flicker of that familiar fire in her father's eyes, the soldier who once faced adversity head-on. "This isn't just about one person," she pressed, tears welling as she fought to keep her emotions at bay. "It's about every person who feels unheard, every voice crying out for justice. Are you really going to turn your back on them, on us?" He hesitated, the air thick with unsaid words. Sarah held her breath, afraid to hope that maybe, just maybe, he would rise to this occasion. "I can't promise anything," he started, but she could already see the resolve building within him. The man she remembered, the father she longed for, was slipping back into place, slowly reclaiming his strength. "Just be there for me," she urged, her voice cracking with raw emotion. "We can't change the past, but we can fight for the future." The clamoring voices of the crowd surged again, a new chant taking root among them, "We won, T back down." It echoed through the diner, shaking Sarah's soul to its core. She felt the energy pulse from the protesters outside, a relentless force challenging the very fabric of their lives. As her father looked up, a new understanding dawned. "You're right, we can't let fear hold us back any longer." With those words, Sarah felt a release, a lightness washing over her as hope ignited within. They could face the ghosts of their past if they stood together. But as they shared this newfound connection, a loud crash shattered the moment. A group of angry protesters clashed with police just outside the diner, chaos erupting as the voices turned to screams. Instinct kicked in as Sarah took a step back, heart racing with a mix of fear and adrenaline. "Dad, we have to help. They need us." As the diner trembled with the weight of the world shifting outside, Sarah knew they were at a crossroads. Their choice would either shape a new beginning or sink them back into the darkness from which they had fought to emerge. Would her father find the courage to stand with her, or would this moment slip away, just as everything else had in their past? As the tension mounted, Sarah's heart pounded against her chest. This was the moment of truth. Would she and her father finally take a stand, or would they falter once again? The sound of shattering glass echoed through the diner, jolting Sarah and her father back to the reality unfolding just outside. Their hearts beat as one, a frantic rhythm against the chaos that demanded their attention. "Let us go," her father said, his voice steadying as he placed a firm hand on her shoulder. The hesitation that had plagued him moments before vanished, replaced with a resolve that ignited a flicker of warmth in Sarah's heart. She could see it, a glimmer of the strength he once held. As they stepped through the door onto the bustling street, outside, a scene erupted before them. Protesters and police stood enmeshed in a swirling mass of anger and fear. Voices intertwined, some cried for justice, while others yelled for order. The night air was thick with tension, and the stench of sweat and determination surrounded Sarah like a storm brewing in the distance. "Do we just join them?" Sarah asked, looking up at her father, whose face was now a mask of fierce purpose. He nodded, their shared past momentarily overshadowed by a newfound commitment. "We show them we're here. We won't be silent any longer." The words were like a spark, igniting the embers of courage within her. As they pushed through the crowd, Sarah's heart thumped wildly. Each step felt like a small act of rebellion, a defiance against everything that had held them back for so long. Glancing around, she saw familiar faces, friends, neighbors, people who had fought together in small ways but had never dared to confront the bigger issues. "Look around you, Dad," Sarah exclaimed, gesturing at the unity around them. "This is it. This is what we're fighting for." Her father's eyes scanned the crowd, and she saw him drinking it in. The anger and the passion, the community coming together despite the chaos, it was palpable. He straightened up, a soldier once more, ready for battle, but just as they began to move toward the front lines, the situation escalated. A police officer's stern voice cut through the air, demanding the crowd disperse. Shouts of defiance erupted, tension spiking as batons glinted in the streetlights. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, fear wrapping around her like a vice. "Stay close to me," her father shouted above the din, pulling her toward him as the crowd surged. An overwhelming sense of camaraderie enveloped them, yet the violence simmering beneath the surface left a bitter taste in the back of her throat. Next to her, a protester shielded a younger demonstrator from the fray, embodying the fierce protection that surged through Sarah's veins. She felt it building a shared belief in justice, in standing together against the tide of oppression. Then, just when it felt like they might be swept away in the chaos, something unexpected happened. The crowd began to chant in unison, their voices resonating like music. "We are strong. We will rise." It was both beautiful and terrifying, a collective heartbeat that throbbed in rhythm with her own. Her father's grip tightened around her, and in that moment, she felt his resolve strengthen. "We have to be part of this, Sarah. Together. As she met his gaze, something shifted within her. For the first time, she didn't just see her father, she saw a partner. The sirens blared, the tension thickened, and the energy crackled as they prepared to take a stand together, but a piercing scream rang out from the edge of the riot. What was that? Sarah gasped, her stomach twisting in knots. Her eyes darted to the source of the chaos, fear colliding with adrenaline as she realized they were about to face something far more dangerous than they had anticipated. Would they rise to the occasion, or would their quest for justice cost them everything? The screech tore through the night like an arrow, and Sarah felt it pierce her heart. Her father's face hardened, eyes narrowing as he searched the crowd for the source of the cry. A wave of murmurs rippled through the chaotic throng around them. "Stay here," he instructed, but his voice was almost lost in the sea of sounds, anxiety coiling within her like a spring ready to snap. She wanted to protest, to demand they stick together, but the pull of the unknown was too strong. Yet another scream erupted, this one laced with panic, followed by the clatter of feet against pavement, belligerent shouts mingling with the rising tide of chaos. "Sarah, keep close!" he yelled again, pushing through the throng, an unyielding shield. The atmosphere crackled with fear, and she could feel it electrifying her fingertips. The crowd shifted, bodies jostling against one another as people tried to navigate the uncertainty surrounding them. Dad's grip on her hand was firm, and somehow grounding. "Just a little closer," he urged, and they moved toward the front lines, where the police barricades loomed, stark and imposing. The oppressive smell of sweat and unrest filled the air, suffocating in its intensity. As they pressed on, Sarah caught glimpses of individuals, a woman clutching a sign, her eyes wide with both hope and terror, a group of teenagers, their faces painted in defiance, an elderly man, trembling but standing tall, holding his ground as if the weight of the world rested on his shoulders. Then, suddenly, the crowd surged again, a wave of bodies pushing them backward. Sarah stumbled slightly, panic gripping her. Her father's hand tightened again, relentless. "Focus on me," he said, his voice carrying through the chaos like a lifeline. She nodded, drawing in a deep breath, and they fought their way back into the heart of the protest. The beautiful chanting turned into frantic cries, bleeding into something darker. "What's happening?" she shouted, desperation calling for clarity amid the chaotic soundscape. "I don't know," he replied, eyes darting, searching for a sign. Then, before they could gather their thoughts, a group of officers began to clash with protesters at the barricade. It was like watching a chaotic dance, violent and bewildering. Some were pushed back, while others stood their ground defiantly, unwilling to back down, their voices rising above the din. From the corner of her eye, Sarah spotted a small figure crouched behind a dumpster, a child, barely older than 10, trembling and alone, looking helpless amidst the uproar. The sight pulled at her heartstrings, and she felt a rush of compassion flood her. "Dad!" she cried, pointing urgently. "That kid needs help." Her father turned, taking in the scene. "Stay here." "No." She pulled free from him, driven by a force of determination that burned deep within her. "I can't just stand by. He needs someone." "Sarah, wait." He reached for her, but she was already racing toward the frightened figure. As Sarah approached, she knelt down, heart pounding in her ears. "Hey, it's okay. You're safe," she said, fighting to keep her voice steady. The child's wide eyes reflected terror, and she could see the tears brimming, lost in a storm of confusion. "Where's your family?" she asked softly, extending her hand toward him. Before he had time to respond, a loud crash resonated nearby. Sarah's breath hitched, and she turned to see an object fly through the air, a glass bottle, shattering just inches from them. Time seemed to slow, adrenaline surging as instincts kicked in. That moment, she realized that everything around them was unraveling fast. They weren't just fighting for a cause anymore, they were wrestling with the very essence of humanity. Would she have the strength to help? Would her father see her as more than just his daughter, but as a pillar of strength too? "Sarah, get back!" Her father shouted from a distance, fear etched in his features. What she didn't expect was for this night to change everything, setting them on a path that could lead to more than they had ever imagined before. The rush of adrenaline pulsed through Sarah's veins. Heart racing, she focused on the child before her, the little face etched with fear, silently pleading for safety. "It's all right, I promise," she whispered, her heart aching. Around them, chaos erupted, voices shouting, fists in the air, and the clattering of equipment creating a cacophony that drowned out everything else. The child, wide-eyed and trembling, looked around as if searching for a way out of the nightmare. "I can't find my mom," he sobbed, tears streaming down his cheeks. Sarah's chest tightened. She wanted desperately to comfort him, to help him find safety, but what if she put them both in danger? Just then, the crowd erupted. Police formed a blockade, their batons raised, ready for a clash. A deep throaty roar mixed with scattered cries of pain as the tension erupted into violence. "Sarah!" Her father's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. He pushed through the crowd, but she felt a strong instinct pulling her back toward the child. She couldn't abandon him. "I have to help him," she thought, determination igniting within her. "Okay, listen," she said, kneeling closer to the boy, trying to shield him with her body. "I need you to stay really close to me. Can you do that?" He nodded slowly, sniffling, eyes darting nervously between her and the chaos. "Good. We'll find your mom, I promise," she assured him. Just then, another crash sounded nearby, jolting them both. The boy crawled closer to her, looking at the fight transpiring just beyond their hiding spot. "Hold my hand," she instructed softly, extending her palm. He grabbed on tightly, and Sarah felt strength flow from that connection. She was not alone in this chaos. As they shuffled together, moving away from the chaos, she caught a glimpse of her father still fighting through the crowd. Panic raced anew in her chest when she realized he couldn't see her, and she couldn't see him either. "Stay calm," she told herself. "You're going to get out of this." In that moment, she became acutely aware of the world around them, the haunting cries, shouts demanding answers, and the pungent scent of fear mixed with sweat and smoke. The weight of uncertainty pressed down on her heart. Could they actually make it through this? Suddenly, her feet stopped on the edge of the sidewalk. The barricades loomed ahead, flanked by shouting officers lined up like soldiers on a battlefield. It felt like a gauntlet, one that Sarah had to weave through, or they'd be trapped against the wall of chaos. "We need to get to that alley over there," she decided, pointing to a narrow opening between buildings. It felt safer, away from the shouts and jarring sounds. "Okay," the boy trembled, still holding her hand tightly. "On three, we just run, all right? 1, 2, 3. With a sudden burst of courage, they darted toward the alley. Halfway across the street, another bottle flew, crashing against the pavement just beside them. Goosebumps prickled Sarah's skin, but she didn't stop. She couldn't. It was now or never. They bolted into the alley, Sarah's heart thundering as they pressed against the damp brick walls. The narrow passage was dim and felt like a refuge from the chaos, but Sarah could still hear the roar of protest outside. She crouched down, offering the little boy a weak smile. "See? We're safe here," she said, but in truth, she felt anything but safe. A part of her was terrified that her father hadn't made it, that he could be trapped out there while she protected this child. As she glanced back toward the street, a wave of emotions washed over her. She felt empowered by the risk, yet terrified. They were in this together now, two lost souls amid a raging storm. What if they were stuck like this forever? Suddenly, she heard footsteps coming from the mouth of the alley. Her heart dropped. Who could it be? Would it be help or danger? "Sarah!" Her father's voice echoed through the air. Relief flooded her, but uncertainty tightened within her gut. "Dad!" she shouted, desperate. But as she turned the corner to greet him, the sounds outside intensified. Shadows raced down the alley, and the realization sank in, they weren't out of danger yet. What would happen next? Would they all make it through this tumultuous night together, or was it just the beginning of something even more unpredictable? Sarah! Over here! Her father's voice shook her from her thoughts. He was rushing toward her, face pale with worry. Dad! She gasped, feeling a flood of relief as he reached them. She tightened her grip on the boy's hand, pulling him closer. I found him. He's lost, and we need to help him find his mom, she explained quickly, trying to remain calm. Her father nodded, still scanning the alley, his eyes wide with urgency. We can't stay here long. We've got to move. But where? Sarah asked, glancing back towards the mouth of the alley. The sounds of chaos still echoed close by, and dread coiled in her stomach. There's a side door over there, he pointed, the bakery. It might have a safe route to the front. Let us go. They shuffled toward the door, careful to stay quiet. The little boy's breaths quickened, small whimpers escaping his lips. I want my mom, he whispered, and Sarah's heart broke at his fear. Sure you're going to be okay? Just stick with us, she urged gently, squeezing his hand reassuringly. Her father pushed open the door, and they slipped inside. The warm scent of bread filled the air, but it did little to soothe the pressure clamping around Sarah's heart. The swinging door creaked, the sound oddly haunting in the otherwise quiet bakery. Stay close, her father instructed softly as they maneuvered past shelves filled with fresh pastries. They could hear muffled shouting from the outside, the crowd still restless just beyond the walls. He led them towards the back door, but as they reached for the handle, a loud crash resonated through the building, startling them. Sarah felt her father's hand tense. They're coming in, he breathed, panic lacing his tone. Go! He urged, pushing the door open just as another wave of shouting erupted outside. They stumbled into a narrow alley that led to a back street. Sarah's pulse raced again. Beyond that chaos, there had to be safety. Where do we go now? She asked, looking around frantically. The shadows loomed large, making it hard to see where to run. There's a parking lot a couple blocks away. We can hide there, her father suggested, leading the way. He glanced back at the little boy, whose eyes were wide with fear and uncertainty. Stick together, her father commanded as they started to jog. Each step felt heavy, anxiety clawing at Sarah's thoughts. Would they make it to safety? How would they find the boy's mother? They rounded a corner, hearts pounding. Halfway across the expanse of the parking lot, a loud voice rang out, "Hey! Stop!" It was an officer. "Run!" Sarah shouted, adrenaline pushing them forward. The little boy didn't hesitate this time, sprinting towards the shadows of the nearby buildings, the weight of his fear momentarily replaced by instinct. They dodged behind a dumpster, heartbeats drumming in their ears. Sarah pressed close against the cold metal, glancing at her father, desperation etched in his features. What do we do? She gasped, trying to catch her breath. Just wait, he whispered, his voice steady. Stay quiet and we'll figure it out. But in that heavy silence, as the chaos echoed somewhere distant, Sarah felt something shift within her. She realized this experience had changed something deep inside her. The fear, the worry, it all drew her closer, not just to the boy, but to her father as well. I won't let anything happen to either of you, she promised herself, the weight of that vow settling heavily on her heart. Then, like a shadow emerging from the darkness, a figure appeared at the edge of the alley. Is anyone there? Tension surged through Sarah's veins. Was this help or another threat? Stay down, her father whispered, eyes locked on the figure. Would they be discovered? The answer felt more urgent than the first crash of chaos outside. In that moment, everything hung in the balance, and the weight of their future pressed against them like a storm cloud ready to burst. What would happen next? Would they find help, or would this be another twist in a night full of uncertainty? The figure stepped closer, and Sarah could hear the crunch of gravel beneath his boots. Her heart raced, and she squeezed the little boy's hand tighter, willing him to stay silent. As the figure came into view, she could see it was a man, wearing a dark jacket, his face partially shadowed by a cap. "Is anyone there?" he asked again, his voice calm but serious. Sarah's instincts screamed for them to remain quiet, hidden in the shadows. But something in his demeanor suggested he meant no harm. "Please, we just want to help," the man continued, catching sight of her father's tense posture. "You're not in trouble. I'm here to help get people to safety." "Who are you?" her father dared to ask, his protective stance unwavering, ready to defend them at any moment. The boy pressed against Sarah, eyes wide and shimmering with tears. "My name is Daniel. I'm helping families find their loved ones after the chaos started. We need to move, but we can't stick around here," he explained quickly, glancing back toward the noise echoing in the distance. "Trust me, I can take you where it's safe." Sarah's father exchanged glances with her, uncertainty and desperation swirling in the air between them. "We need to find this boy's mom," Sarah piped up, her voice steadier than she felt. "Can you help us?" Daniel nodded. "Yes, of course. But we can't stay out in the open. There's a safe house my team has set up a few blocks from here. It's our best shot." "Lead the way," her father said finally, though hesitation still brewed in his eyes. They ducked out from behind the dumpster, following Daniel through the shadows. With each step, Sarah's heart fluttered. Hope mingled with the weight of fear. They weaved through back streets and alleyways, Daniel scouting ahead like a cautious deer. The chaos faded into the background, but she could still hear muffled screams and the distant wail of sirens. The little boy looked more terrified than ever, clinging to Sarah's side. "Stay with us, buddy," she whispered, glancing down at his trembling form. "We're going to find your mom soon. I promise." Just moments later, they arrived at a modest door tucked between two taller buildings, the paint peeling and uninviting. "In here," Daniel urged, motioning for them to enter. They bolted through the doorway, and he locked it behind them, silence enveloping them almost instantly. Inside was dimly lit, but they could see a few makeshift beds and other frightened faces. Families huddled together, some anxiously calling out for missing loved ones. Tears flowed freely, the atmosphere thick with worry and confusion. "We need to divide and conquer," Daniel said, surveying the room. "If you're the boy's family, we'll get you situated, and then we can start finding his mother." "Okay," Sarah's father agreed, his voice low. "But we can't leave him out of our sight. We've come this far together." Daniel nodded, acknowledging the bond nurtured in the chaos outside. "Right. One of my team members is out trying to locate families. Maybe we can get a lead on where she is." Sarah looked at the boy, who now seemed a bit calmer. "What's your name?" she asked gently. "Max," he replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "Max, we're going to find your mom," Sarah assured him, her heart swelling with determination. She looked at her father, who had taken on a sentinel-like posture. They were a unit now, a tiny circle of support in a world turned upside down. Just then, a woman burst through the door, panting. "There you are. We got your mom, she's safe. But we need to get out of here." All breath left Sarah's lungs. The relief mixed with fresh anxiety. What else was out there? What danger lurked beyond the door? "Let us go," Daniel called, snapping everyone back to urgency. As they moved toward the door, a sudden loud bang resonated outside. Fear shot through the room, and the cacophony of panic picked up again. "Now!" Daniel shouted, and Sarah dashed forward, hearts racing, unaware of what awaited them in the chaos outside. Would they find safety, or would the night only get darker? The door swung open, and the night air rushed in like a cold wave, sending chills straight to Sarah's bones. Her breath hitched in her throat as she rushed out, the distant sounds of chaos pressing closer with every passing second. Max's tiny hand was still in hers, and she could feel the pulse of panic racing through him. Follow me. Daniel's voice pierced through the din. He dashed ahead, leading them with a fierce resolve. Sarah's father took up the rear, keeping a watchful eye on the street, but it felt like a cloud of dread hung over them. What waited beyond the gate of safety they had found? They emerged into a desolate street, the flickering of broken streetlights casting long shadows. Sarah's heart raced. They weren't safe yet. Daniel glanced over his shoulder, checking that the group stayed close. Stay low, he instructed. They kept their heads down, hearts pounding like a marching band drumming chaos into the night. As they navigated the wreckage of a once familiar neighborhood, they could see more figures moving in the distance. Sarah's mind painted pictures of fear and danger with every shuffling sound. Were they friends or foes? Just a little bit further, I promise, Daniel said, his voice betraying a hint of urgency, as if pushing them through an unseen barrier. They rounded a corner, and the sight of a barricaded building up ahead brought a glimmer of hope. That's our next stop, Daniel said, pointing as they neared it, but suddenly, a scream shattered the air. It was raw and heartbreaking, slicing through the stillness like a knife. Sarah stopped in her tracks, instinctively tightening her grip around Max's small hand. She glanced at her father, whose expression mirrored her own fear. They were close, but so were the shadows closing in from the edges of their world. Daniel! Shouted one of the other adults who had followed them, eyes wide with fright. What was that? Daniel frowned, his jaw tightening as he scanned the streets. We need to move. Now. The urgency in his voice pulled them forward. As they burst into a run, Sarah stole a glance back. The shadows seemed to pulse, darting like wraiths through the darkness. It felt as if the night were alive, hungry, and relentless. Each step brought a mix of adrenaline and dread. Run! She shouted to Max, who stumbled but kept up, tears glistening in his eyes. His little legs were moving as fast as they could, grounded in fear but also in an unwavering trust in her. Finally, they reached the barricaded building. Daniel fumbled for the door, his hands shaking as he pushed against the weight of anxiety pressing all around them. The door creaked open, and they rushed inside, hearts beating a frantic rhythm. Inside was a dim room filled with anxious faces illuminated by the soft glow of cell phones. Relief washed over Sarah, but it quickly morphed into worry. The boy's mother was out there. Max! A familiar voice called from across the room, breaking through the tension like the first light of dawn. Max's face lit up, a sudden spark of joy bringing color to his pale cheeks. Mom! He cried, launching himself into the arms of a woman who had just entered. Her face was streaked with dirt and fear, but those eyes, the overwhelming relief and love surrounded him. Sarah's heart swelled, amazed by that bond even amidst despair. Yet the joy was short-lived. A loud crash echoed outside, sending everyone into a panic. The door rattled violently as if someone wanted in. Stay back! Daniel shouted, moving to barricade the door as the sounds intensified. What is happening? A woman cried out, clutching her child. Fear hung in the air, thick and suffocating. Just hold on. We have to stick together. Daniel commanded, face resolute yet showing strain as they prepared for whatever came next. Sarah squeezed her father's hand, feeling his pulse matching her own. What lay beyond that door? Would the darkness win, or could they find a way through together? The room held its breath, waiting for the next moment to unfold. Would they stand strong, or would fear tear them apart? The tension crackled like electricity, setting the stage for what would come next. The moment hung heavy in the air. The crashing from outside clamored closer, but at that moment, within the safety of the room, something extraordinary began to unfold. Each heartbeat felt like a pulse of hope, igniting courage in their hearts, forging connections stronger than fear. Sarah held her breath, feeling the warmth of her father's hand intertwined with hers, steadfast and grounding. With every second that passed, tension twisted tighter, but she resolved, we are not just going to survive. We're going to thrive. Together. Everyone, listen. Daniel called, his voice steady despite the chaos. We need to prepare for whatever comes next. If we stick together, we can face this storm. The adults in the room exchanged eye contact, a silent agreement forming amidst the apprehension. Families clung to their children, but now there was a spark in the air, a shared will to push through the fear. Max, Sarah said, kneeling down to the little boy, I want you to stay close to your mom, okay? Just hold hands. His small, confident nod warmed her heart. It was the kind of resilience that made a world of difference. As Sarah stood, she looked to her father. We've come this far, Dad. We can do this. He met her gaze, and she could see the shadows of the past beginning to lift, a sense of purpose overshadowing their complicated history. You're right, he said, determination blooming within him. Let us show them we won't be silenced. With that, the room fell into a hushed anticipation. The people around them were no longer just scared souls in a dark space, they were a community, ready to stand up for one another. The barricade at the door rattled again, louder this time, but they anchored themselves deeper within the safety of numbers. A heart-wrenching scream echoed from somewhere beyond, sending chills down their spines, but Sarah felt the tide within her shift. Hold on. She called over the noise. We're going to take back our strength. In that moment, something clicked, everyone around her began to stand a little taller. They formed a circle, tightening together, hands gripping one another, voices rising in unison. The chant filled the room, we are united. We will not fall. The fear wasn't vanquished, but it was wrestled with hope, each voice intertwined in solidarity, creating a beautiful tapestry of humanity amid darkness. Then, out of the shadows, they saw lights approaching, flickering from distant flashlights, almost fairy-like against the night. Help is coming. Someone shouted, joy and relief bubbling to the surface. A burst of energy surged through them, igniting a round of cheers. It was a sweet sound, one that promised connection and support, even amidst chaos. Suddenly, the door swung open, revealing a team of medics and volunteers, faces bright with purpose. We're here to help everyone get to safety. One of them called. Sarah's heart surged with joy as they moved like a wave, guiding each family toward the exit. With her father right beside her, they ushered Max and his mother toward safety, their hands lifted in solidarity. As they stepped out, the night glimmered with hope. The rioting had subsided, the sirens fading like memories. The faces of neighbors, of families united in their struggles and victories, were all around her, alive with connection. And there it stood, the diner, their little heart of the town that had endured. It was scarred, yes, but also renewed, embodying the spirit of resilience, a mirror of their collective journey towards something deeper than all this hardship. As they emerged together into the soft dawn, Sarah's breath hitched with realization and overwhelming gratitude. Her family, her community had risen. They stood united, determined to heal together, rooted in strength uncovered through vulnerability. In that sweet moment, the chaos behind them, the warmth of a new beginning enveloping them like sunshine. Sarah and her father locked eyes. The ghosts of their pasts faded further, replaced by the hope of what could come next. It was more than a night of uncertainty, it was the spark of a transformation that had been waiting to blossom, and as the last whispers of chaos drifted into a gentle breeze, Sarah knew they had not just survived, they were on the brink of something beautiful. Together as one, they would rise. Join this powerful journey with us. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories of transformation. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this inspiring ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this uplifting journey. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans understand the importance of standing together.